Welcome back to another episode of Conversations That Count. Today is a solo episode, which I'm super excited about, and it's going to be a big one. So not just in terms of what we're diving into, but because this might be the exact message you didn't even realize you needed to hear. So we're not talking about surface level stuff today, and not the kind of new year, new me energy or shiny Pinterest vision boards. We're going to go a little bit deeper than all of that. We're talking about who you believe you are, because here's the truth. If there's a disconnection between who you think you are and the version of you want to become, you will feel stuck. And it's not because you're lazy, and it's not because you lack discipline. It's because your identity hasn't caught up with your desire. And that's a really important distinction to make. So today we're unpacking what identity really is and why it's often the missing piece in your growth. How to know when you're in an identity shift. And I'll give you a little hint. Sometimes it can be a little bit messy. I'll provide tangible tools to move you through stuckness with grace, and why nervous system regulation and mindset work are your secret weapons, and how to start choosing the next version of you on purpose. So this episode is for anyone who has achieved a lot but still feels like something is missing. It's for the person who is asking, who am I now? And it's for the person or the part of you that's quietly whispering, there's more for me and I'm ready to claim it. So get a little bit comfy, maybe grab a cup of tea, maybe take yourself for a walk, whatever it might be, but let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with something real. Have you ever felt like you're doing all the right things? You're checking off your goals, you're staying busy, you're showing up for everyone, but deep down, there's something that just doesn't click anymore. There could be a little bit of a disconnection there. You feel like you're living in this weird in-between kind of moment, like you're not exactly lost, but you're also not fully found. You've grown and you've evolved, but the identity you're still operating from, it's like you're wearing clothes that no longer fit. And that can feel a little bit disorientating. What I've learned in my own life and with my clients is this. If your actions, your habits, your environment, and your self-talk are all reinforcing your past self, then your future self doesn't stand a chance. So I'll share something a little bit personal here as well. So about 6 months ago, I left my 13-year corporate career. I walked away from the structure, from the routine, from the certainty, from the identity I held onto for over a decade, that I'd built for over a decade. And I stepped into building my business, my coaching full-time, and launching this podcast, which I absolutely love. And it was one of the most empowering decisions I've ever made. But I'd be lying if I said it also hasn't been terrifying, because suddenly that version of me, that dependable, high-performing, that 9 to 5 kind of good girl in a sense, she's gone. And I was standing there like, okay, now what? Who even am I? There were days that I've felt free and full of purpose, and then days I've questioned everything. That's the thing about identity shifts. They don't come with a manual. They come with emotions. They come with doubt, with unlearning. And it's a kind of transition where you look in the mirror and you ask, what do I want to hold on to? And what do I need to let go of? And who do I actually want to be now? So if you're nodding your head, then you're not alone. Now let's talk about the ripple effect and that has on other areas of your life, because when you're out of alignment with who you're becoming, it doesn't just affect us, it also touches other parts of our life. You show up, work half present. You snap at your partner even when you don't mean to. You scroll on your phone instead of being present with your kids, or being with your kids or your friends, or even with your own thoughts. You kind of are in an avoidance pattern there. You start performing even in relationships that once felt safe. You're still functioning, you're still feeling productive, but the aliveness, the groundedness, the you-ness, it starts to fade a little bit. And maybe no one else can quite name it, but you feel it. And here's the thing, when you're not being who you truly are, you can't connect, you can't lead or love in a way that you've meant to. So let's go a little bit deeper now, because real transformation is not just about setting goals or writing affirmations. It's about understanding how you're wired, what you're internalizing, and why your life keeps repeating itself with the same emotional cycles, even when you want to change. And to do that, we need to explore 3 key areas. So your nervous system, your mindset, and then also your unconscious identity. And I know in the previous podcast, a lot of my guests have spoken a lot into this. And today I just want to bring it back into a different lens and have it more actionable steps for you as well. So let's take them one by one. And I'm going to break them down in a way that's simple, relatable, and powerful as well. So your nervous system. So many people hear the word nervous system and think that's just biology, right? But this is where it gets real. The nervous system is the part of you that's wired for safety, for survival, and for responses. It's not interested in growth. It's interested in keeping you alive, in keeping you safe, which means it doesn't care about your goals. It only cares about whether you feel safe or not. So here's the thing about your nervous system. It's like your body's emotional alarm system, right? It responds before your conscious brain even has a chance to catch up. Let's say you want to speak on stage or go live on Instagram or leave a job that's draining you. Your brain might say, cool, let's go, let's do this, you've got this. But your nervous system might say, hey, that's unsafe. Abort the mission. And that's when you freeze, you overthink, or you procrastinate, or potentially even self-sabotage. It's not that you don't want it, it's that your body doesn't feel safe in having it yet. This happens to everyone, men, women, high performers, creatives, leaders. It happens to all of us, especially if your past experiences have taught you that your visibility, that your vulnerability, or saying no came with consequences. So for example, if you're praised for being agreeable, you may now fear conflict, even when your truth matters. If you were punished for failing, you might never let yourself take risks. That's your nervous system doing its job. It's keeping you in the known, even when the known isn't what you want anymore. So what can you do with this? You start by creating micro moments of safety. So take a breath before reacting. Feel your feet on the ground when you're spiraling. It's use movement or music or stillness to remind your body, I'm safe. I can handle this. Regulation isn't fluffy, it's foundational. And in my belief, there's a lot of programs, courses, learnings, skills that actually miss this vital step in understanding your nervous system and how to work with that better. Your mindset. So your mindset is an incredibly powerful tool. However, it's like, how do I actually utilize that? The word is thrown around a lot, but what it really means is your mindset is the lens through whichever you interpret your life. So it's the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what's possible, and what you're worthy of. Here's the kicker though. You didn't choose most of those stories. They were handed to you from childhood, from culture, from your education, from your environment. So, for example, you might have stories of money is hard to make, or I always mess things up eventually, or it could be around I'm the strong one, I can't fall apart. So it stops you from progressing. It could be I'm not creative. It could be men have to provide, or women need to be nice to be liked. There's so many stories that we tell us on a daily basis, and these stories live in the background of our brain, and they show up in moments like avoiding investment opportunities because you don't trust yourself, or it could show up in a way that is saying yes when you mean no, just to avoid disappointing. It could be staying small because someone once told you your dream was a bit much. That's not just about mindset, it's about unconscious programming. And once you understand how you operate, how you're programmed, and patterns, it gives you the opportunity to change those stories, to change those beliefs, to change that patterning and programming as well. So you might be saying, how do I start to shift these? And it's by questioning the voice inside your head. It might sound a little bit counterintuitive there, but ask, what voice is that? Or whose voice is that? Is this actually true? Is this belief helping me or is it holding me back? And then start choosing new thoughts one layer at a time. This work, it is like a lot of learning and unlearning and understanding exactly how you operate to give you the opportunity to change. So in terms of the identity, it's the deepest level and maybe the most misunderstood, because identity isn't just what you do, it's who you believe you are at the core. And here's the truth. You will always act in alignment with who you believe you are, even if that identity is outdated. So if you believe I'm not a finisher, you unconsciously leave projects incomplete. I'm not good with people, then you'll avoid deep connection. I have to be in control to be safe, then you'll resist surrender and collaboration. This is where so many people get stuck, and it's not because they don't want to change, but because their identity hasn't caught up. And identity isn't just about women. This applies just as much for men as well. In fact, many men carry unspoken identity stories like, I'm the provider, I can't show weakness, or I'm not allowed to feel, I just fix, or my value is in what I do, not who I am. And for women, it will show up a little bit differently. So we often internalize, be pleasing or be small, or don't be too loud, too much, too ambitious. These stories, they live in our bodies and they live in our choices as well. And they become invisible cages unless we consciously decide to update them. So how do you shift your identity? And that's a really great question. And you can start with powerful questions. And this is where introspection comes into play as well. So write these down or come back to these questions as well. So if I already were the woman or the man I want to become, how would I think? How would I speak? What would I let go? And then start living from that place, not waiting to become that person one day, but becoming them now, one decision at a time. Because identity isn't who you say you are, it's who you consistently show yourself you are. You don't find your identity, you create it. When you begin showing up from this place, from being regulated, from aligned, being rooted, everything shifts. Your relationships get deeper, your creativity flow, your leadership becomes magnetic. And when I say leadership, we're all leaderships in our own life, right? So we become magnetic in that. You no longer perform, you embody. You no longer chase, you attract. And people notice not because you're doing more, but because you're being you. So let me ask you this. If you truly believe you are allowed to be the most grounded, expressed, magnetic version of yourself, what would you let go of? What would you start claiming? And who would you finally give yourself permission to become? And you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to decide. And if this episode stirred something in you, share it with a friend, send it to group chat, or better yet, DM me and I'll send you a free toolkit to help you start with the work today as well, and give you those questions that I just went through as well. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you but you. You are powerful enough to begin again exactly as you are. So let's go. Thanks for joining me on this solo episode, and hopefully you got a lot of value out of it as well. And as I said, if it resonates, please reach out.